Seated. Well, I have to tell you that since I've retired, I have acquired a small collection of grandchildren. 3 of them now, ranging in age from 4 down to 18 months. And they love visiting Oma and Pop at the beach, playing in the sand, splashing in the water, but not as much as Oma and Pop love having them. Now, a while back, the eldest, Ellie, when she was just the only granddaughter, I believe, was visiting us. And this was the very first time that she spent an extended period. I think she was with us 4 or 5 days. So this was her first trip away from home. She had been overnight with us before, but nothing this long. And she was really brave about it. And we kept her busy, and we all had a good time. But finally, her mother came back to pick her up. And as Jenny pulled into the driveway, Ellie was there at the door watching. And she started waving and said in a rather plaintive voice, "Mommy, Mommy, it's me. It's Ellie." And that's when we knew that the visit, as happy as it had been, must have seemed like a lifetime to her. It must have seemed like so long that maybe Mommy had forgotten. Well, we all want to be remembered, don't we? I suppose that's a good theme on the day when your old rector is back in the pulpit again. We want to be remembered. In our joys and in our sorrows, we just want someone to remember us. "Remember me," said the dying thief to Jesus. "Remember me," he said to the man who just the night before had said to his disciples, "Remember me when you do this." It's been called the most human prayer of all. And it's our prayer as well. Remember me. Remember all of us as we try our best just to achieve some peace in our lives, as we try our best to live a life of faith. That's all. Just remember us, because then we know we will never be forgotten. Luke, in his gospel, is doing something really amazing today that's easy to overlook, because we just read a short little snippet from the very end of his gospel. We need to consider the whole thing and go back to the very beginning. Luke begins the story of Jesus with shepherds, the outcasts of society, gathered around a manger with a tale of angels' song. And he ends, as we heard today, with the pillars of society gathered around a cross, mocking this king who lacks all power and ability. And it seems as if Luke is holding both of these scenes before us and asking us to make a choice. They're both, frankly, utterly improbable stories. But still we have to choose, Luke says. We have to decide how these stories will speak to us. For if the shepherd's story is nothing but fable, then the cross becomes the triumph of justice over unreason and obstinacy. But if we too hear the angel's song in the beginning, then today before the cross, we, like the penitent thief, can do nothing but pray and hope. Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? Luke is asking us to remember all the stories that Luke has told us, the stories that Luke alone tells us. The story of the Good Samaritan, the story of the rich fool, of the prodigal son, of the rich man and Lazarus, the Pharisee and the tax collector. They're all stories that call into question the honor paid to the rich, the powerful, and the comfortable. Luke's gospel is the one that constantly finds faith where it is least expected, that heaps miracles of grace upon the weak and the vulnerable, that holds up humble service as the measure of merit in God's kingdom. It is a gospel that places us all under the same sentence of condemnation, even as it offers us all a way forward. For Luke's gospel is also the only one to record these familiar words: Father, forgive them, for they know not what they are doing. I think this penitent thief that we hear from today may be none other than Luke himself, speaking to all who read his gospel, even us, in an unimaginably remote time from his. We indeed have been condemned justly, for we are receiving for we are receiving what we deserve for our deeds. And you see, I think Luke is hoping that we will join him there, even in that place of condemnation beside the cross of Jesus. Because if we have followed his gospel all this past year, then we have seen that that is the only place for us to stand. Luke knows that above all, we want to join him in his whispered prayer: Jesus, remember me. Remember all of us. And by way of reply, Jesus says, no, remember me. That's his answer to our prayer. Remember me. Because that's what keeps us moving forward. That's what keeps us from looking back over our shoulder all the time. Our best days are not behind us. They lie yet before us. And that's because Jesus himself is not back there somewhere or somewhen. Jesus is here. Jesus is now. And he is leading us into his future. Remember me, he tells us. Whenever bread is broken, that it might be shared, whenever wine is poured, that all might drink, remember that he is the food for our souls, that he is the water of life. Breaking and sharing is the meaning and purpose of human life. Remember this most fundamental lesson he taught us, that the full richness of life is found only as we pour ourselves out for others. That wholeness and integrity grow only in hearts that have been broken. That others may laugh and mock the cross, but its message remains: where the need is greatest, there the greatest grace is given. Remembering Jesus, being his body, we become vehicles of that grace. And the kingdom that he promises becomes born in our midst. Amen.